with a lot of these online players. They're all connected. They're all connected. And the one truth they will not talk about ever, they will sell their digital course. They will sell how to be magic on Instagram. They will sell all of I will sell products to help you become a life coach so you can sell it. No one ever admits, oh, the reason why I got so big is because in Facebook, that was a time when it was wide open and anyone could build a community. The only thing that they really should be applauded for was their timing.
Yes.
They knew when to jump in it, and they worked hard, they did all the things, but no one is admitting the machine that propelled them. They didn't have success. They were propelled by the algorithm, which allowed them to have success. And I can say this.
Probably have some sex, Molly. Probably.
Yes, or not.
Welcome to Marketing Muckraking, the show that asks not simply what brand culture can do for us, but what it's doing to us. With your host, creative director, and brand strategist gone wild, Rachel K. Albers, making fun of business and making business fun. This is the show for rebels, revolutionaries, and renegades who run businesses that burn the rulebook. If you're sick of business podcasts that have all the answers, well, I got nothing but questions. Let's go. Episode 29, Cancel Culture and Personal Brands in PR Crisis with Molly McPherson. Holy buckets, are you in for a treat? In today's episode, I am joined by the indestructible Molly McPherson, who you may know as the TikTok PR lady, as her followers have affectionately dubbed her. I just know her as my first stop when a brand or celebrity is in the news for reasons they'd rather not be. Molly reports on crisis communications and breaking news stories with a perfect blend of snark and heart. She has over 2 decades of experience in public relations, emergency management, and media, and she recently won the 2023 Adweek Creative Visionary Award for Careers Creator of the Year. Molly is hilarious, warm, and witty, and I am absolutely thrilled and delighted that she is on the show today, talking about the number one biggest mistake that brands make before, during, and after a crisis, and even dishing with me on my favorite topic, the online business family tree, and the curious case of the SEO-optimized friendship featuring personal brand celebs Rachel Hollis, Jenna Kutcher, and Amy Porterfield. But more than anything, I appreciate how Molly always brings us back to our humanity and helps us see that public relations is just a fancy way of talking about human communication. And now, on with the show. Here we are. We are co-muckraking with Molly McPherson today, and I couldn't be more delighted to have the queen of snark with heart here with us in the studio. Hi, Molly. How you doing?
My heart. I'm great. I'm so excited to speak with you, Rachel. You have no idea. You're one of my people.
Being here. Thank you for co-muckraking with us. And I led with the snark with heart because that's how I see the way that you show up in the world in your analysis of PR communications crises. I know on TikTok, they call you the PR queen, right?
Yeah, some do. It's funny. I get that, which of course I love, but also I see in my hashtag when people search for me, they may not know my name. So they just call me PR lady.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm like PR lady.
Yeah, PR lady. I prefer queen for you. I feel like lady. It is very Midwestern though. It is very it's just the PR lady.
I'm just a PR, I just sit here talk about PR.
And yeah, people think of you as the PR queen / lady / maven / fill in the blank with your favorite positive adjective. But you often clarify that you see yourself more as a crisis communications expert, leader, consultant, strategist. What? Fill in the blank.
From personal branding, it's so difficult to brand yourself. To call myself a public relations expert is like, ugh, that doesn't even feel good to do that. But, I would say as someone, really, I'm a communicator. I'm a communicator who helps other people navigate communications in the age of social media. That's in its simplest form. But my background and my career is working as a public information officer, an emergency manager. And so I worked a lot of crises in my job. And so I just naturally, it all kind of came together. So I just consider myself, a public relations strategist who specializes in crisis management.
Correct. Because you worked for FEMA, right?
Yes.
And you also worked with the Cruise Line International Association?
Yeah, the cruise line industry. Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes. So that's an association in Washington, D.C. So it's really the lobbying effort, but I was the head of communications for there. So another fascinating turn in my career.
And now I'm actually very curious about who your clients are, not necessarily who they are. I'm sure those names are under lock and key, but I'm curious about what you're doing when you're not on TikTok, because you are on TikTok a lot, uncovering and examining anytime anyone in the media has a crisis, you're on it. You're talking about it. You're breaking it down for your audience. All right. So do you actually sleep? Because I don't know when you have the time to work or do anything other than manage crises for TikTok.
Yeah. People are starting to figure that out. Certainly in my direct messages. I'm busy. There is no doubt about it. I have 4 kids, all of whom are going off to college this week. I've already sent off 1. And then I have 3 more. And then for the first time in 21 years, I'm putting myself, and my work ahead of my 4 kids, because I don't mention this on TikTok, but I'm a single parent. And right. I am juggled. The juggle is real. So my life off TikTok, I am a whirling dervish, but yeah, most of it I'm working with, I'm just doing client work, and I fit in TikTok where I can.
So what kind of client work do you do? Do you have celebrities reach out to you to help them manage crises? Are you working with companies? Is it a mix of both?
Yeah, I would say when I first started on TikTok, I was working with my normal client base, working with associations. I work with a lot of cooperatives. It's a, business model. I did a lot of training. I had a lot of the same clients, and I had a comfortable business, and I just moved more, into the world of social media. And I also work as a keynote speaker, but TikTok completely opened a different door in my career. And now it opened it up to many other industries and the entertainment industry, the influencing industry, music industry. I definitely work with people now in names that people are quite familiar with, very public types of crises and issues. So yes, it's been very interesting.
It's fun to watch you solve the mystery of when an apology or a statement was written by a publicist. Like you just had a TikTok, I think today or yesterday, about how when you have a double space after a period, that's probably written by someone like over the age of 45.
Oh, I know. And so many people come at me, all of these people my age and older, they're like, why are you dunking on the age? And bam, 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 bam. I was like, I'm not, but it's true. It's true. I use it all the time. And the post that I put in TikTok was working with a client that was dealing with this outside special interest group. But everyone on it was anonymous, and I'm looking at it, and they wanted me to suss out who was behind it. And I looked at all of the tells and communication. I thought, this person knows what they're doing. This person clearly is following AP style. So I thought, okay, they work in journalism or they studied journalism. And I could just tell their writing that I thought it seems like an inside job. And the final piece, the piece de résistance, was the double space after the period. And I said, look for someone who either studied or worked in journalism. They're in the building, and a couple of other things. And I said, and finally, they're over the age of 45. And they went, we know exactly who it is. And I was correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was another TikTok post that I did, bigger brand. And they were dealing with a big crisis, but I could tell that their message was internal. Like they were managing the crisis internally. Mm-hmm. And again, dismissing the social media blowback, which is more thinking of someone who's had a career in traditional media and traditional media deadlines, or like end of day deadlines. And then I noticed the double space. So I was looking at the company, went to LinkedIn, honed in on, I think I had 2 culprits in there, and then I figured out it was one. And the people who worked there got back to me in my DMs and said, you nailed it. You got it absolutely right. 100%.
Oh my God. That is hilarious and fascinating. And I think you called it in your TikTok PR CSI.
Yes, I did. I threw that out there, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. You have to
And that
investigate.
is what it is. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun.
Yeah.
That's a different show, but
Oh, that's right. That's Law and Order. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, all right. You have done this big evolution of you have a background in more traditional PR media. In the last few years, you have transitioned into observing how crisis and communications problems happen specifically in the age of social media and on the internet. And so that's the TikTok side of you, kind of analyzing pop culture. And I think I saw one of your TikToks a couple years ago where you were like, if I could just make my job talking to journalists about my favorite things, which include pop culture all day, that would be amazing. And that's kind of what you're doing these days a lot of the time, isn't it?
You are ripping out a conversation that I had 2 hours ago with a media outlet because they want me to commentate and be a part of that. And that's exactly it. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. And there are people in my client space who I've heard through the ether say, oh, she just does pop culture now. They kind of, poo-poo it kind of as a, kind of as a joke too, because I had my, existing client base. But the truth is the knowledge is in what they are doing. It doesn't matter if it's a celebrity,
right,
a reality star, an influencer, or someone who works at a business. They're still doing the same thing. It just might not be as interesting, but the same PR lessons are there. So to be able to use pop culture zeitgeist moments as a case study just makes it more palatable and more interesting for people to follow. But it's still the same.
And you have this audience of people who are not in PR. That's not their interest area, but they are riveted by you. And I think anyone who's listening to the show, because yes, I have this audience of rebels, renegades, revolutionaries who run businesses that burn the rule book. So all different types of businesses. And many of them struggle with how to talk about what they do and create content about what they do in a way that is interesting. And you are just a walking case study for you've taken something that can be for many very dry and boring. And you've got the kind of traditional backbone of the industry and you make it so exciting. And yeah, if you watch your content, you'll learn a lot, not just about crisis management and all that kind of stuff, but you learn a lot about communication, about trust.
Yes.
And just human relationships and all of those dynamics. So if you haven't already, followed Molly on TikTok, you've got to, but you got to listen to this podcast first before you do that. There will be plenty of links in the show notes. So, okay, you help organizations, corporations, associations, and also celebrity personal brands or not so celebrity personal brands until they might inadvertently become a celebrity because of something they've said or done. What are some of the biggest avoidable or not avoidable, I don't know, but what are some of the biggest errors, mistakes that you see brands making before, during, and after a crisis? What are the errors that you see that you feel like could be avoided?
Well, here's the biggest one, and I'm going to take this from April of 2023, and that is dismissing the power of the voice on social media and the voices on social media. Whether it's a well-organized mobilization of people or loosely organized around a value system, they will let a brand know, we do not agree with you. And that's the case of Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light. I noticed a change in just from that time, how polarization in society and culture and conversation and discourse can truly impact brands. And when people, again, strike out against you, you can bring down the biggest brands out there. And that changed my business too, because obviously the press picked up and noticed. So I did a lot of media interviews. And so my business changed right along with the discourse and how people, handle these crises now. So that's the biggest thing. It's dismissing social media discourse.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about that because I was at the store browsing the aisles and I saw the Bud Light kind of off in a corner. It was at Target.
The display? Oh, seriously? Oh, Target. Talk about two brands.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They both had their moments, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. But yeah, so I'm at Target, which, for better or worse, and I see Bud Light, all of the drinks, Bud Light is lonely off in the corner. They've just kind of shoved it back there.
Wow, that's interesting.
How you talk about dismissing because Bud Light's response was very much to kind of tiptoe out of the room a little bit, hope that it would die down. Yeah. But not only did they dismiss both sides, right? Because you had folks upset about Bud Light sponsoring Dylan Mulvaney, and then you had folks upset that Bud Light didn't have Dylan's back. And so they dismissed everyone. And at the time I was like, oh, they're going to bounce back quickly from this, but I was wrong.
The whole Bud Light issue, I can't say, even though I was being asked to commentate on it, I cannot say that I was an expert in it because it was changing so much. Yes, that's exactly what they did. And I think I had said that in one of my TikTok posts. You cannot truly be a successful brand if you are actively disengaging with a group. You are turning your back on a group. And there were a couple piggybackers on TikTok, like people who either teach in my space or work in it. Some will say, oh, respectfully, I disagree. Or some people say, I don't agree, blah, blah, blah. And I would listen to it through the magic of stitches, right? Like, I love how people do that. Like, oh, I'm going to leverage off of you to say why you're wrong. And they're proving my point as they do it.
And they were stitching you? That's who they were stitching?
Yeah, so they would take my TikTok and stitch a part of it and say either something like, oh, I normally love everything she says, but I disagree on this. Or someone would say, she got this wrong. And they're all comms people, right? Or comms, professors or people, who know things. But I still stand by that. Like, a lot of the pushback was, you can't speak to everyone at once. You have to pick your audience and point it directly. It's like, you're talking to me about marketing 101. Like, you don't think I know that? Yeah. Yeah. A beer. Exactly. Yeah. You're not going to target beer to babies. I gotcha. Okay. I gotcha. I didn't even have to go to college to get that one. Got it. Thank you. No, but what I'm saying is, yes, okay, within that beer market, with the persona, right? But you cannot be successful in a brand and say, yeah, but we're not going to pick you. It's like MLB saying, we are going to broadcast to all MLB fans except moms. No. You are not welcome. You want to come to Wrigley? No, the door is closed. You can't do that, because not only are you going to piss off every mom who says, not only am I never going to go to a game again, I'm not going to teach my kids baseball. I'm going to have them play lacrosse, because baseball might even be dying anyway. And then you're going to have people who are going to support the moms, and they're going to boycott just because they're supporting the moms. That's how it works. And people forget that. So, and that's what Bud Light did. Bud Light said, we're gonna ignore not just the trans community, LGBTQ plus. I mean, all of it. That's what I think.
And they ignored Dylan. That was the biggest problem for me, was dropping Dylan and pretending she didn't exist. And she went through it. I mean, she kind of went dark for a couple of months. She had to go off the grid. She was getting death threats. She's kind of been making her way back online. But when I heard that literally no one from Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light, had ever reached out to her after this happened, I was deeply disturbed by that. And I do kind of have a belief that if a brand is going to partner with anybody in the age, listen, we're in 2023, we know what's up. Anything that you put out there that's worth gaining attention can potentially be polarizing, can potentially move an audience. You sometimes don't know, right? And so to do something like that and not be prepared to have her back really just kind of put it on their sleeve exactly what their intentions were all along, which was attention for the sake of it, money grab with the LGBTQIA community without being willing to back them up and actually stand with that community. But also, and the other side was like, you're not standing with us. We want you to stand with us standing against them, right? Like, and so, what a masterclass in what not to do, I got to say. But I'm curious, Molly, what do you think they should have done?
Yeah, that's a hard question. And it's funny, when I was on NBC Now and they said, okay, you have 11 seconds. And then that was the final question that she asked. What would you do if you were the CEO of Bud Light? Like, I would say 11 seconds. I mean, they made a mistake, right? But I don't think the mistake started, believe it or not, with Bud Light. I think this idea of the head of marketing, she wanted to expand and go to a different audience, which I think was smart. I think that was smart, but that's not what the crisis was. Everybody assumed that was it. That wasn't it. What it was is that she went on a podcast and she didn't look prepared. She wasn't looking at notes. And one of the biggest media no-nos is you never treat an interview like a conversation. She was treating it like a conversation. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I forgot now, but we didn't want to target to those frat bros anymore. We wanted to expand the audience. That got clipped, stitched. And that is what went out. It wasn't Dylan. It was the combination of Dylan with this clip saying, not only are we embracing the here, we are disavowing the people who made our brand great. That's the nuance of what happened. And that's where they got their blowback. And now the mistake that I think compounded on top of that is when the CEO, Brent Whitworth, came out with his statement, he had to pander right back to that group who was upset, I'll call it the Kid Rock crowd, while disavowing himself and turning his back, like formally turning his back on the LGBTQ plus, who they just embraced. And then that was it. So that's where that was a compounding mistake.
That's really smart. You're right. Because all of the news stories that I saw when this first broke did have that clip of the new marketing director or whoever she was. And those comments.
Former VP of marketing.
Former. Ouch.
Yeah.
They're going to be teaching about that in PR classes. Maybe you're teaching about that in PR classes. It seems like you are teaching it. You're teaching us now.
Oh, yeah. That every one of my keynotes now, I talk about that because it's important. It's like one of those watershed moments, for comms.
You're right. You're right. And I, like I said, was surprised. I was surprised because you've seen a lot of companies get blowback and then they bounce right back immediately. Bud Light has not done that. And so we'll see. Only time will tell. But I'm curious if you have an example of a PR crisis, a communications crisis, where the brand or the person in crisis did things the right way or did things better, did things like how you would have advised them to do it.
That question always stumped me because no one did it right. No one really got through anything. I'll give you two examples. And one you just mentioned, who wasn't the cause of the crisis, but played a big role in it, and that was Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney's response and reemergence back into social media, where she explained what happened, but also explained the pain that came with it. So what she did is she just brought everybody back into her and almost in a way on her side and reminded people of the human element that happened. And by also mentioning that Anheuser-Busch never reached out to her, it casts them in such a negative light. So that's kind of one of those meta crisis responses. But I guess another recent example would be Jamie Foxx, who had to apologize for making a statement on Instagram that was, he apologized to the Jewish community for using a phrase that I've come to learn many in Black culture identify from just their years of going back, how they were treated unnecessarily and the abuse that they handled. And so that's been passed down by the generations, but it also is written in a way that seems like it is against Jewish culture, which is, if they did it to Jesus, they'll do it to you. So you can see both sides of it. But Jamie Foxx apologized for the negativity towards the Jewish community and didn't qualify it by saying only the people who I offended, put everyone into it, put it on Instagram, not Instagram stories, and was heartfelt and owned it, explained it, promised it, which is my framework. And it went poof, went away.
Yeah, I was just studying up. I was brushing up on the world of Molly McPherson. And so walk us through that again, your framework. You've got this framework for helping people know what to do if they're in a PR crisis. So you said own it, explain it, promise it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I call it the Indestructible PR Framework. And it's just based on, I call my book Indestructible as well. And the idea behind it is it was born out of, this idea of the cancel culture where people feel like they're going to be destroyed. And I always feel like even if someone makes a mistake and there is some type of punitive action against them, if you own up to it, you take accountability for it, people will give you the grace. I mean, that's usually how it works. And particularly now that the news cycle is faster and faster, when someone apologizes or acknowledges something or admits to something, they're boring. It gets boring. Well, this isn't fun to talk about and snark about, when you've admitted it, and people move on. That's the idea behind it. And it's no different in a public crisis and then in a personal crisis. Think about if you're having a fight, if you're a fight with someone who you're dating or married to, whatever. You can keep going back and forth. If someone doesn't admit that they're wrong, you're going to fight about it forever. But if someone says, you know what, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's like, oh, well, now there's nothing to fight about, Same theory applies, in PR. So, and to make it easy, it's just own it, explain it, promise it. You take some acknowledgments, usually all the A words, admit, acknowledge, apologize, atone, whatever it is, accept, and then you explain, and that's context. And that's actually where you can explain why something happened. You can bring other people into it. You can explain, it happened in this environment. And then people start to get it. They buy into it like, oh, I see. And then that's where the rehabilitation comes in. And then the next step to move someone through it is, what's your promise? What are you going to do? Are you going to change? Are you going to look at it differently? Are you never going to do it again? And then when people hear that, like, all right, we're done here. Next. And then they move on.
Yeah, this comes back to what you said before, like the crux of most crises is the dismissal. Kind of a traditional organization that's done things the same way for years, and they're dismissing the power of social media, and they're dismissing the voices or the group that may or may not be organized coming to say, hey, you have caused harm in this way, or we're not cool with this. So they dismiss that. And so going back to the own it, explain it, promise it, sounds like, the owning piece is the opposite of dismissing it, right? And all those words that you said.
Yes, exactly. Because that's a D word. And we don't like that word, dismiss.
Oh, Molly.
So who do we know, Rachel? So who do we know that went through a public relations crisis and they did not own it? And to this day, they still have not recovered because they did not own it. Say it, sister.
Rachel Hollis.
Rachel Hollis.
Oh God. This is how I learned about your work, actually, was we both were commenting on Rachel Hollis, obviously me through kind of like my chaos snark, and you through your snark with heart. So, we're two sides of a coin here, Molly. But yeah, Rachel, it's been 2.5 years almost since Toiletgate.
Yeah.
The toilet flushed around the world. And I was looking through your TikToks today, and she, you shared an interview that she was on where they were asking her about this. And she seemed like, when I was watching your analysis of it, that you felt that her comments, you agreed with some of them and didn't agree with some of them. So maybe you can give us the TLDR on your snark with heart, Rachel Hollis.
Oh my gosh. I have to admit, so much of my true analysis and learning about the headspace of people who've been wronged or felt an injustice was from the Reddit Hollis Uncensored group, because I looked at it as and I don't even want to tell people who are in my business, because that's how you learn. Like, you cannot be good at your craft if you do not do the research. You have to do the research. And I can look at celebrity culture all day. Yeah. But if you go into a Reddit group or Reddit forum, people are on there every day. It's a mix of schadenfreude with true injustice. And there are people there that just like to knock people down, but there are people there who are really hurt. They were taken in. They were taken advantage of. And they will not let it go until someone can admit that they were taken advantage of. Otherwise, it stays there. And the Hollises are a perfect example of that. She absolutely refused to take any acknowledgement for what she did in her career, despite her little podcast tours and SiriusXM, I guess, giving her a podcast or something. I don't know. She's fallen from grace. And that's a perfect example of what happens if you do not take accountability.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that I also, like to observe Hollis Uncensored. I don't participate there much, but I do observe because, I talk a lot and research a lot about this branded age, this age of us productizing ourselves, turning ourselves into commodities. What is that doing to our humanity? So it's interesting to read in that group and see what this obviously anonymous group of people who this isn't their area of interest. What they're interested in is how they've been hurt, like you said, or how they feel duped or scammed, how they've woken up to the whole kind of family tree that Rachel Hollis is connected to of all of these celebrity personal brands who are selling them personal development and self-improvement, and how they're being grifted in this way. So it's very fascinating. And I agree with you that it's the same thing is happening with the Colleen Ballinger situation. Miranda Sings. I mean, you can't actually have a better example of somebody absolutely refusing to take responsibility. You want to talk about dismissal, the toxic gossip train, the ukulele. Oh my.
I know. What a bad, poor choice. But the one piece about it though, that I will give her that maybe was her thought process with the ukulele video is what was lost in all of in her public relations crisis is she was a character and she portrayed this character, right? But behind that character was talent. She was a good singer. Yeah. She was raised. I mean, I think she studied opera in college, I think, if I'm going back to my research. She worked at Disney for a bit. Like, she was a performer. And so she relied on, or she went back to her strengths. Like, where do I feel comfortable? Where do I feel strong? oh, I know, I'll sing my song on this because and she probably thought she was being kitschy. And I think then the mistakes started coming in, the poor choices. And I've said there wasn't an adult in the room when these decisions were being made, is to sing her apology. Someone may have said, oh, if we do this, because I know people talked about the legalities and the copyright and how people can't use it, la, 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 who cares? It doesn't matter if you use the song or not. The stain of the reputation is there. I mean, her career is over. The only way she can resurrect herself is if she resurrects of something completely different. Other than that, I don't think there's any hope.
Yeah, I mean, in both her and Rachel's case. Now, Colleen is offline right now. She has, after her almost, I think, millions of views on the High ukulele video, she is now, I think, smartly, finally taken a step back. Rachel, though, is back. She's back on the scene. Like you said, she's on tour. But in both cases, these folks, not only didn't they follow your framework in terms of own it, explain it, and then promise it, they centered themselves as the victim, right? So that was, I mean, I don't think Colleen ever apologized in her video, actually. She just talked about how this was victimizing her. And when Rachel Hollis discussed what happened with Toiletgate in her interview last year, same kind of thing. Like, oh, I was in the middle of this. This was so hard for me to be in the center of. And in both cases are dismissing. And that's why people won't let it go in both camps, right? Because they're hurt.
Yeah.
And the more that Rachel and Colleen double down on the victimhood piece instead of the ownership piece, the angrier people are getting. So it's such a good point that the owning it is really what diffuses a situation like this. And the 4 or 5 A's you said: accept responsibility, apologize, admit you did something wrong, seek accountability, atone was one of the A words you gave. So those are very helpful for us to keep in mind. I was going to ask you, Molly, if you thought that, here's my little theory.
Tell me.
About the Colleen thing was that from a marketing perspective, the fact that she did it in song, even as I'm talking to you about it right now, it's in my head, and it's cute, right? Toxic gossip train, right? It follows you around. It's an earworm. So there was a little bit of me that's like, maybe her strategy from this is that this earworm, kind of to your point about she's an entertainer. This is what built her audience was her characters and her music, for better or worse, right? As Miranda or as Colleen. So part of me was like, did she kind of think that at the end of the day, what people would remember would be just the melody, like you remember a jingle of a commercial you've heard for the last 20 years? I don't know. That's my theory about the ukulele.
I think you're right. I think that was part of the thinking in there. But I also think she made a mistake that a lot of people in the center of a crisis make too, is they think that they're smarter than everyone else. And I believe that she thought that she was going to be so clever that everyone was going to praise her for how clever she was to come up with this song to explain. And she was too clever by half, right? No, it did not work. And everyone let her know by doing it by song, she completely dismissed what she was doing and the severity of what she's doing. And then another piece, Rachel, of why I don't think we see Colleen around is because what's different from Rachel Hollis is Colleen has legal issues that she's dealing with. I mean, that's why she's working with lawyers, because she had some legal complications with her. So I think her lawyers are telling her to skid-ass.
Isn't she working with the same lawyers who you have like the list?
Yes, it's a lawyer, so it's not the one who I've been talking a lot about, which is Marty Singer. His name is, oh my gosh, I've already forgotten. Starts with a B. It will come to me. I think David Birberinger, and he worked with Prince Andrew. Oh gosh, now the names are starting to escape
Danny
me.
Masterson.
It's funny. I said it in my TikTok, and I remember memorizing all these names. It was all the guys who were involved with issues, and a lot of them had sexual challenges there. So because she did too. So that's why I think we're not hearing from her.
Well, I think that's a good move at this point. And it'll be interesting. Again, only time will tell. And we live in this age of the personal brand. In her case, she is a full-time creator, and I think her entire family relies on, and her friends even are getting paid through the business of her being on YouTube, right?
Yeah. And her family has her own YouTube channel too. I mean, they're all in it.
How she pivots at this point. How does one pivot? And, that is a good question. I look through your content. At the end of the day, I said at the top of the show, really, if you're following Molly McPherson, you are learning not just about PR crisis, but about relationships, human communication. And ultimately, what it feels like a lot of what you examine comes down to is trust, right?
Oh, yeah.
Someone has lost trust.
Yeah.
With a segment with a person, with an audience, with a group of people, whatever it might be. And well, first of all, it must be so interesting for you. First of all, you said you have 4 kids. So I don't know if I would like to be trying to get away with something under your nose, Molly, with you as my mom. It just doesn't sound like it's that easy.
No, here's a problem though. Here is a problem with me. I am a very trusting person. I come in trusting people, and that has burned me mightily in my life. So I have used the reason why I know the framework works is because I've lived the framework and I've seen it work and not work. So I am the first person, and I applaud you for recognizing that. Yeah, people know me for public relations, but what I'm talking about again is human relations and how people behave. And one of the things that I get praised for, which it's undue praise. Oh, Molly predicted this. You predicted it. You said this would happen. You said this would happen. And wouldn't it be great to be the predictive PR person? But you can predict bad behavior. Like, if you know what a narcissist is, you know what a narcissist is going to do. It's not that difficult to figure it out. So I get far too much credit.
You're just like, you just know people. You know people, you study people, and you can see patterns in behavior that anyone, if they were really looking, I think I hear you saying, could be able to see and identify. Do your kids use the framework on you, Molly?
No, they're not wise to it yet. They do understand my business, so they do get it, and it is fun with kids at this age. I have 2 journalism majors. I have another one who's like a comm major and someone who's in a service academy. So she has no choice. She can't do what we do, but they all get, though, the culture of social media and news. We're a newsy family. So it's fun that my kids pick up on all of it.
What do they think? I mean, because they're the TikTok generation, right? Like, what do they think about? Do they watch your stuff? Are they like, Mom, God, no?
I know. Well, you would think. I mean, if I try to go too deep into the youth pool that I have no business belonging in, they might let me know. But they're very supportive. And I think they think it's kind of cool, like, because I work overtime to not look like a loser online. And sometimes I can't help it, but I'm in the age of online reputation. I don't want to humiliate myself. So by nature, I don't want to humiliate my kids either. Right. I think they think it's fun.
I'm glad you've got the team spirit in your house. They're cheering you on.
Yeah. The hard part, honestly, is I wish I could tell them some of the clients who I work with, because I would love to tell them, like, okay, this influencer, what do you think of this influencer? But I can't do that. That would open up a can of worms with them. And I would lose all trust with my clients. So I always have to lock it in.
So the NDA extends to the kids, which of course it has to. It has to.
Yeah.
But that's good. You do walk your talk, Molly. And
I do.
Going back to the trust thing, because that was my question. You answered my question. Like, do you trust anyone, Molly? Because I might be the opposite of you. Like, at this point in my kind of muckraking, I'm like, it's hard for me to trust. Although I do kind of have an overly generous spirit at times. I think a lot of people listening to this probably have, a set of questions that you've answered to around what happens if I get canceled, or how do I handle crisis, or what if somebody comes for me? But the other side, and the side that I often am focusing on, is how do we know who to trust? What are the marks or the signs of a trustworthy person in or out of a crisis? Do you have signs that you're looking for? Just like you can tell the bad behaviors based somebody's presenting maybe with narcissistic traits or not. What is the opposite of?
Oh, this is such a good question, because as soon as I'm off here, I'm going to film a TikTok about this question. Ooh. One of the tells in the side of a public PR battle that at least involves the legal sector, that you can usually spot it when it's a legal PR crisis, is look for the bully. Whatever the bully moves are, because bully indicates weakness. Bully is just a cover for weakness. And weakness could present itself as they're the guilty party, or in the legal realm, our case is not as strong as I would like it to be. So I'm going to fill in the gaps. by being a bully and I'm going to bait. And it's the same, again, the narcissistic traits. They'll focus on the easy, low hanging fruit. Like they'll talk about in their statement, the things that, that are easy to prove or not easy to prove to distract from, wait a minute, what about the real story that's happening here?
Right.
So that's usually one of my tells. Who's the bully and who's covering weakness? That usually is the tell to the person who's done something wrong.
Well, okay, this is interesting, Molly, because I'll talk about myself here for a second. So you're on the Marketing Muckraking show. I spend a lot of time looking at, as I said before, what is the age of the personal brand doing to our humanity? But sometimes that work includes calling out harmful actors, specifically power players, right? Like, in the work that I've done, that I've snarked and researched about and written about and talked about Rachel Hollis and her SEO-optimized friendships and some of the kind of big power players in the online business world. I focus a lot on them and the predatory, unethical marketing and sales practices that they use. And I have received the feedback that by doing this, it makes me a bully. So what is the line here? And how would you define a bully versus, I don't know, for me, I disagree with that. Like a bully, in my opinion, needs to have some degree of power in the situation in which I do not, right? Like it's just me down here.
Rachel, who's calling you a bully? Right? Tell me that first. Who's calling you a bully?
They were on Reddit, actually. On Reddit!
Who, like what forum? Like tell me the people. Are they people who follow these people?
The forum was Life Coach Snark, actually. Because speaking of dismissal, Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School has come under fire recently for cutting a bunch of her contractors in a very glib, dismissive way. And through that, some of her former employees have come forward and talked about a very toxic work environment, a cult-like environment, some have described, and on and on. And Brooke has just released an episode of her podcast talking about unmerited hate or something like that. Basically, this is her dismissing the critique, right? And so in this group, this Life Coach Snark group, somebody shared some of my work about this because I've spoken about Brooke. And they were like, oh, you should read this. And there were people being like, yeah, this is really helpful. And then there were people that's like, RKA is a bully. She's fill in the blank. A lot of things that I wish I didn't see. Don't read the comments, Molly. I made that mistake. But yeah, so I'm curious about this because a lot of folks, and you see it on TikTok, come onto TikTok and share content about these powerful people who are, whether it's a Colleen Ballinger or a Rachel Hollis, or it's Bud Light, or it's, fill in the blank with any of these celebrity online business people that I talk about. What's the line between speaking truth to power, between holding people accountable and being a bully?
Okay, so here's the difference. So I can see why someone would lash out at you to call you a bully because you're exposing people and calling them out. There is a gray area of social media vigilantism that I think is dangerous, where we expose just regular people or we expose creators on social media and to expose them, right? And they may have said something wrong or they're going to be taken out of context or stitched. I've had that happen to me personally. And so that's like difficult, right? So that's difficult, but that's different. That's where people are, in many cases, they're finding the flaws. They're looking for the things that they could take opportunity to whip it right back at you. And in some cases out there too, the social media vigilantism, they might see someone in public doing something horrible and they'll say, oh my gosh, we have to expose this person. And the behavior may be horrible, which I agree, like, oh my gosh, that's horrible behavior. I still don't like the act of taking a public person and I still don't like the act because it tells people, yeah, it's okay to just out anybody for whatever you want. You can even lie about it or not, whatever. The difference in what you're doing though is you are exposing an injustice. Okay. So you're enacting like the social media, but it's not in the spirit of vigilantism just to bring someone down. You're not choosing to take the authority to head it on. What you're exposing is think of it more like an investigative journalist. You are showing the other side of what's happening. I mean, go back to Watergate if we have to go back, to the beginning, right? What happened? The people around Richard Nixon, yeah, they pointed fingers to the Washington Post and Ben Bradley and Woodward and Bernstein, right? But it doesn't take away what you're talking about. It's still, you're bringing truth to it. I think you were an incredibly important voice during a time when you were speaking the truth about people who were untouchable. No one ever said anything negative about, oh my God, Amy Porterfield, excuse me? And Jenna Kutcher? These people are whatever, but Rachel Hollis, because she was so whatever, people are like, okay, because sometimes we'd expose some cracks in there. But what you're doing, I think, is opening up the door to letting people know about grifting. My biggest beef with a lot of these online players and you talk about Brooke Castillo, you talk about all those people, they're all connected. They're all connected. And the one truth they will not talk about ever, they will sell their digital course. They will sell how to be magic on Instagram. They will sell all of I will sell products to help you become a life coach so you can sell it. No one ever admits, oh, the reason why I got so big is because in Facebook, that was a time when it was wide open and anyone could build a community. The only thing that they really should be applauded for was their timing.
Yes.
They knew when to jump in it, and they worked hard. They did all the things, but no one is admitting the machine that propelled them. They didn't have success. They were propelled by the algorithm, which allowed them to have success. And I can say this.
Probably have some sex, Molly. Probably
yes, or not. But I can say this too, is because I'm going through the same thing. I am achieving success because the TikTok algorithm favored me. Okay. I've been on Twitter since 2007 and I have like 18,000 followers and it's 2023. I can get 18,000 followers in a day on TikTok. Is it because of my message? No. If I had such a great message, I would have had this huge following on Twitter. It's because I'm being fueled by an algorithm. That is my biggest beef with all of them. And you are the one who, and people could look at it as exposed, right? But I look at it as you're educating people in a lot of cases, women who want to be small business owners, they're moms, they're stay-at-home moms, and they prey on a lot of this groupthink and that you might find in military spouse culture, which I was one of them, Christian, there's more groups of women there that might fall prey to it. So you're working as an advocate for them. So I'm sorry, that was my rant, but I feel very strongly about that. There's some wonderful things like Amy Porterfield, really, you believe she wants to help people. I believe it 100%. She puts so much energy into the beauty and the packaging. And that woman works hard. There's no doubt about it. And you could tell it seems like she might suffer from the anxiety. And she's very open about the choices that she's made in the past and the struggles. And that's one of the reasons why I applaud the stuff that she did. But you never hear about her when she talks about her origin story. Oh yeah, I dumped all this money with Marie Forleo.
Right.
But I happened to do it at a time when Facebook took me off. So that's what bugs me. That's where,
Yeah, and I appreciate you acknowledging. Now, Molly, I would say, yes, I think it's both things for you. I think you do have a great message. The core PR tenets that you speak to, plenty of communications experts do and have spoken to throughout history, right?
Right.
But it's your delivery and the way you do it and the way that you bring it home in this very funny, also very, at the same time that you're funny and snarky, there's a wisdom and a nurturing spirit that even if the person that you're calling out or that you're kind of examining, I could imagine they could watch your content and not still feel
attacked.
Like an affinity towards you because there's just a warmth there. So yes, you have great content. I think you have a great message. And I appreciate you acknowledging you also were in the right place at the right time in a way that some of these people who are stitching with you, I think they're trying to ride the Molly McPherson train to fame a little bit, which is
they're piggybacking.
It's nice to be the train that everyone wants to ride, but they can't have the same success that you have had because the times have now changed. It's harder to get traction on TikTok in 2023 the way you would have in 2020, 2018, or whatever it is. So I appreciate you acknowledging that it is the duality. You obviously work yourself. You're working. You're out there. I
work
see
my
it.
ass off.
The work. And you had some advantages that have pushed you forward. And the whole Rachel Hollis thing, I will say, I kind of feel that she was like a sacrifice in a way. Like she took one for the team / the industry in the sense of, have there been other members of this online business family tree / cult who have said and done things far worse than Rachel said in that TikTok about her toilet?
Yes.
Absolutely. Russell
Yeah.
Brunson is one of the bees in my bonnet because he wrote a whole book about how Adolf Hitler is his business coach.
Yes.
I mean, and so I'll never stop shutting up about that. I'll never shut up about that. But, all of these people that finally decided to distance themselves from Rachel, it wasn't because they were so upset about what she said. It was a strategic move. They saw that the blowback wasn't dying down and that by association with her, it was going to harm their brands. So They collectively kind of pushed her away.
Yes. And because they didn't want the exposure, right? That you were highlighting and you were bringing out. No, I agree with you 100% because she had the additional punitive actions of the industry turning against her. There's no doubt about. And that to me is unfair when I totally agree with you. There are a lot worse people out there in their business practices. That's where I have some
compassion for Rachel. That's where I'm ooh, these people, they burned her in a way that it's like, but they all are still buddy-buddy with each other, and each of them kind of has their own secret locked in the closet. I don't believe you when you say that the reason that you distanced yourself from Rachel is because you were upset by what she did. I think it was like you were upset she cost you money.
Yes, exactly. Yep. I totally agree. Yeah. And the Rachel Hollis, she's a great example, but again, still, she's not getting it. And I get a sense that people want her to come back. It's like they want to like her again.
Even this snark group that I was telling you about, that they were kind of talking about me a little bit. What I ultimately had to decide about that for my own mental health, reading those comments and having to walk away and take a moment, was that a lot of the folks in those groups, they want it to be as simple. When we talk about some of these entrenched circles of harmful actors that are all helping each other and perpetuating bad practices and unethical practices, I think people want to believe that it's just about, it's just one bad apple. And if we can kind of pick that bad apple off, or maybe even cut off the rotten part, then we can still eat the apple, or then we can go back into believing that there is a magic pill that you can take to skyrocket to success, or that there is a course I can download to make me happy.
Yeah.
People want to still believe, they're still kind of halfway bought in, which is why I do the work I do, because it's not about the people, honestly. Just like with you use these celebrity crises as a storytelling mechanism to help people understand human behavior and relationships and communication. But at the end of the day, that's what your message is. It's about the communication piece, not about the people, whether it's Colleen Ballinger or Bud Light or whoever it might be. That's just a vehicle for you to get your message to new audiences of people who probably would never have thought about these things before.
Yeah, it makes it relatable and understandable. Yeah. So because people follow, other people. The other element too, and I want to add that because I want your ears to hear this, because I work with this with my clients too. So many of them have a Reddit problem. Okay. So they're online and they have a Reddit. One of the differences about why Reddit is such a different beast altogether too is the anonymity. I mean, of course, that people are anonymous, so they can be far more biting. It is really a snark site in a lot of cases when you get these types of rooms. But the other piece of it, and against these brands where in defense of a Rachel Hollis or someone else who's getting, sucked into it, is people, again, going back to that human behavior, people have parasocial relationships with people. So they personally feel like they've been let down, right? So it's personal. But also that the Reddit algorithm creates an addiction to these heads of the Schadenfreude that people get addicted. They get a dopamine hit when they see other people get knocked down. Yeah. So it creates this addiction that people keep going back to these groups. They log in every day. They log in multiple times a day. They don't get their fix if someone doesn't highlight a post or show something that, we're going to attack this person again. Right. So that's an element of it too, that for people who are highlighted in these groups, it does make it challenging. So when I have people hire me, I tell them, remember, it's a lot of it's algorithm, addiction, and Schadenfreude mixed in there, and we're not dismissing them as people because Reddit is making them addicted to all of this. But we still, need to manage it. So I just wanted to mention that to you, because if you took a personal hit there, just put it into context.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I too have a little bit of a Reddit problem, Molly. I have noticed this within myself, especially around, I will tell you what, here's how I knew that I had a parasocial relationship with some of the people I snark on, who I never even had a positive association with them. Speaking of Hollis Uncensored, when Dave Hollis passed away, that news impacted me in ways that I didn't expect it to. I was very surprised by how I
Tell me how.
I was, in the business of critiquing what the Hollises were representative of in this greater thing. But when that news broke, it affected me emotionally in a way that I was like, wow, now I know I've got a parasocial relationship here, especially, and it's a weird, snarky parasocial relationship, but I was sad, right? And it also disturbed me. This is where I had to kind of take a step away from the snark groups. Then watching, you talk about the online business industrial complex, watching people like Mel Robbins use that as an opportunity to monetize her grief. And 2 days after he died, she wrote an email where it was a eulogy email. And then at the bottom of it was like, and if you resonated with this message, go click on this interview I did with a totally different person. Go listen to my show on a whole other topic. Click here for an affiliate link to fill in the blank, right? That distressed me on a level that I became like emotionally upset. And that's when I had to get out of there. I had to get off Reddit for a couple of months. It was not a good time, right? But yeah, so many layers to this. So there's even, like I said, parasocial bonds with the people we snark on.
Yeah. Can I give you what I think a lot of people who are, because I'm the same way, we commentate on them. The other piece of the Dave Hollis death, one, it's just shock, like when you follow someone, when that happens. But also, when you said Mel Robbins, yes, when she was promoting the fact that she was doing the eulogy, like she was chosen to be the one person to speak on Dave Hollis's life. And no, you were chosen to represent that part of his world, the online influence world. But we could go on for hours about this. But look at what happened in the end. It's funny. I spoke with someone, I know someone who worked for them, and a lot of what people assume is happening, actually, it was interesting to hear a lot of the things confirmed that you suspect, but we didn't know the manner of his death. At the time of his death, everyone was shocked. So of course you're going to feel that immediate knee-jerk reaction of feeling guilty for snarking on someone. And you could even see it in that room. Everybody was feeling so guilty. I did a podcast about it. I brought in Emily Rose. We had talked about, a parasocial relationship and what was happening to a lot of people who felt that way about Dave Hollis. But look at in the end about his cause of death. So he was struggling with a lot of things that people were pointing out in the Hollis Uncensored. Is there an addiction problem here? Is there a drug problem here? Is there an other problem here? But here he is selling people on a lifestyle. You can be you, he and Heidi Powell, the two of them together. Oh, if you just believe in yourself, if you just do this, if you show up, if you eat this and drink this and consume this powder, they're hawking and shilling powder while Dave Hollis is consuming it. And that's how he dies. Now, on the one hand, people understand addiction, and that's where the guilt comes in. You understand his struggle. You still feel sorry for the kids. You feel sorry for Rachel, right? But again, you were making a living telling people how to better their lives. And that's what you were doing, right?
100%. No, this is exactly. So of course it's tragic. And
horribly tragic.
His kids, he's young children, very young children. One of them is around my daughter's age. And so that it hit home for me there.
Yeah.
But exactly what you said was what also I took out of the situation, which is like, you've got this whole group of people, like the internet makes it so that we can, like I said, turn ourselves into products, brand an illusion of happiness, success, wealth, health for our audiences, and play into their own lack of health, lack of wealth, lack of connection and friendships. They're selling this sense of, if you're watching my stories, you feel like you're part of my world. You're my friend too. You're here with us as we do all these vacations and all the things. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, whether it is, an addiction problem, whether it is actually you're making yourself look like you're a millionaire, but you rented the Airbnb that you're filming this in, or in Rachel and Dave's case, they had monetized their marriage and they were doing marriage seminars for thousands of bucks a pop, when in reality, you couldn't stand each other anymore.
The whole thing was falling apart. And I know we could go on forever and ever, but here's the last thing I'll say, because it ties in.
You got to go make that TikTok.
It ties in with what I do though for work. And I'll say this.
Okay.
Think about when Toiletgate happened and then we found out that they were getting divorced. Okay. Think about all the sympathy or empathy that Dave Hollis had, right? Like really a lot of it went towards him. Mm-hmm. Imagine a Dave Hollis who did not immediately date a Heidi Powell, but a Dave Hollis who went, God, this sucks. Oh my God. she just left me. So he's writing a book, right? Imagine he stops what he's writing and he says, I'm going to write about now the challenges, what's really going on here. Not to bring down Rachel, not to bring down the whole kingdom. But what if he chose to show up vulnerable in that moment and say, okay, she left me. Here's some of the reasons why. We didn't have to hear the details of the details. We could read a little between the lines, right? He doesn't owe us everything. But imagine if he was the struggling person. What if he let us into his struggles? Imagine how many people Dave Hollis could have helped if he let people in just a little. And he had another time, like right after Pancake Gate, when he was clearly spinning on something, he even could have done it then. He could have come back then, or even when he went to rehab and come back out and have honesty and vulnerability. That's what gets people through, because people relate to that and people want to raise you up. They want, as much as people love to bring people down, people love to raise people up more. Had he done that, I think it really would. I mean, geez, we can't say it would have saved his life, but think of how many people he really, truly would have helped, and ultimately himself.
That is powerful, Molly, and I completely agree. And it goes back to what you said before in your kind of framework, which is about owning it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He had owned that within himself, for his audience, it would have helped a lot of people, certainly. And so, very, very tragic the way that ended.
Sadly,
It really is. I appreciate, though, you kind of bringing us back to, people do on the internet love to snark. They love to be people's downfall. We have this kind of Reddit energy that kind of pervades the internet, and because this is about human behavior and relationships and communication. And ultimately, I think we want to see each other win, just not in dishonest ways, right? So when somebody breaks our trust, we want to see accountability. We want to see ownership. But at the end of the day, I think because we want to win. We all want to win, right? It all comes, at the end of the day, each one of us is out here trying to survive and be out here in this wide world. And so, sometimes we see people who do harmful things, and that reminds us of the people who have harmed us. So we want to see them come to justice. And on the other side, we ourselves are struggling in this, mixed up universe of ours. And we ultimately hope that we can be redeemed, that we can make better choices, that we can win. And I think that your work helps us to see both sides of that. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it. And I just want to end it up on this one note too, is all the things that you said, but also the benefit of community, because for all the problems that Reddit has, I think one of the reasons why people love Reddit, it's a community. They love the community of people who think like them. So just choose the jujitsu of it. Like, you can choose it for good or you can choose it for evil, right? And the community is a great example. It will bring you up. So yes, the cancel culture is there. People love to bring people down, the schadenfreude of it all. Don't forget human nature. People love to bring people back up as well. So find your community. Really find your community and you'll find your success. I feel that. Your authentic community, the real community.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a whole other podcast we could talk about.
Right.
Mic drop, Molly. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see the TikTok you make today. I will put it in the show notes.
Oh, great. Yes, good. Yes, it's coming now.
In a couple of minutes, you will hear Marketing Muckrakers. You will hear me tell you all about where you can find Molly McPherson online, because now I know you are rushing to see her TikToks and to listen to her Indestructible PR podcast and all of the things. So I will let you know about that in a couple minutes. And in the meantime, Molly, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, it was my pleasure. Love speaking with you.
I know you are probably already rushing to TikTok to get a heaping helping of Molly McPherson's Snark with Heart. But if you want my curated list of greatest hits, get ye to the show notes at marketingmuckraking.com for all of my favorites and how to find Molly everywhere internets are sold. And if you liked this special co-muckraking episode, you'll be pleased to know that I have some amazing guests coming up soon. Yes, we are in the guest era of Marketing Muckraking, and upcoming episodes feature some fun mystery guests talking about topics that include the perils of monetizing your kids online, the dark underworld of MLMs, and how to spot scammers and recover from toxic business culture. Are you ready to party? Because we've got RSVPs from some fiery rebels, revolutionaries, and renegades who run businesses that burn the rulebook. The cool kids are overrated. Stay tuned.
If you want more marketing muckraking and brand strategy gone wild, I invite you to subscribe to this show, and if you enjoyed it, leave me a review. That really helps me out. If you hated it, please send it to your enemies. They sound like good people. You can go to rachelkalbers.com/subscribe to get these updates in your inbox. And because this show is self-sponsored, if you wanted to support my work, you can go to buymearobe.com. That's where the magic happens. In the meantime, remember, it's not the age of the niche, it's the age of the wildcard bitch. See you on the internet.